This is All India Radio. In the program Spotlight, we now bring you a discussion on India-Japan Summit and the road ahead. The participants are Deepa Gopalan Vadhva, former diplomat, and Sanjay Jha, journalist.
Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida has completed his two-day visit after attending 14th India-Japan Annual Summit in New Delhi. This was his first visit to India since he took charge of the office last year and also his first meeting with Prime Minister Modi. Last time India-Japan Summit took place was in Tokyo in 2018. India and Japan have multifaceted cooperation within the ambit of spatial, strategic and global partnership. And this time we saw strong language against Pakistan for terror attacks, humanitarian crisis in Afghanistan, nuclear non-proliferation, pact on cooperation in 5G, cyber security, import of Japanese apples and export of Indian mangoes. So India-Japan Summit seems to have covered a vast ground. What do you think we have achieved from this summit this year, Ambassador Vadhva?
This is the 14th annual summit between the Prime Ministers of India and Japan. As you're perhaps aware, that Japan is one of the very few countries with which we have this institution of annual prime ministerial summits. What does this mean? That our prime ministers meet every year. There has been a break in this continuity because of COVID. Otherwise, they have been meeting from 2006 regularly every year. And the significance of this particular meeting really is that this was Prime Minister Kishida's first bilateral visit anywhere. Normally, you have Japanese prime ministers, their first visits are to their allied partner, which is the United States. But I think Prime Minister Kishida has chosen India as his first stop on a bilateral visit, which is significant in itself. He's also taken the first opportunity with COVID sort of behind us, at least a lull, to come to India and make sure that our cooperation is further widened and deepened, which is what these summits do. And you have very rightly said it is an extremely multifaceted relationship. We do call it a special, strategic and global partnership. It covers a range of issues, which is not only bilateral, but we look at regional issues, we look at multilateral issues, we look at global issues. And very importantly, in the context of the bilateral relationship, we look a lot at not of the political relationship, which is relatively issue-free because we are bound as two democracies, common values and congruences on various subjects as we look at the world. But also that very, very important for India is a deepening of our economic relationship with Japan. So I think during this visit, we have covered all that ground. And you mentioned in particular, for example, the statement has named Pakistan by name in the context of terrorism that is sponsored from its territory. This has, of course, been mentioned before in joint statements, but it's important that we have reiterated it. For me, I think what has been very important is that in the statement, we talk of collaborating on humanitarian front in Afghanistan. I think this is something new and which should be welcomed because I think both of us see the humanitarian crisis in Afghanistan. We do have reservations. We do want to make sure that it is not used as a staging ground for terrorist activities against any other country. But on the other hand, that as two responsible countries, we are willing to step in where there is a humanitarian crisis. You mentioned on the economic front, of course, that we have a CEPA, we have a comprehensive economic partnership agreement. And what we did sign among the various agreements that were signed, 6 or 7 agreements that were signed, is to just widen some of the items in the list. So Indian mangoes, Japanese apples, fish, because our marine exports are a very, very important part of our exports to Japan. So all that and much more, I think they have been able to achieve during this very, very short stopover by Prime Minister Kishida to New Delhi.
Yes, in this short trip, they have indeed achieved a lot. In this summit, which has provided an opportunity for both sides to review and strengthen the bilateral cooperation in diverse areas, as well as exchange views on regional and global issues of mutual interest, so as to advance the partnership for peace, stability, and prosperity in not just the Indo-Pacific region, but beyond. There has been a consistent progress in economic partnership between two countries. We know that Japan is one of the largest investors in India, and Japan has invested heavily in many of our mobility projects. Most of our metros are funded by them. And one of the big projects, Mumbai-Ahmedabad high-speed rail corridor, is in progress. It is also funded by Japanese money. Now, in this trip, Japan has further announced an investment of 5 trillion yen, which is roughly around the 3.2 lakh crore in India over the next 5 years. How significant is this investment? How much this investment will help us in terms of our infrastructure growth?
I think Japan has consistently, and this is not really a very new phenomenon, but maybe starting from the 50s, they have been a very important source of ODA for India in very key areas of importance to India. This is diversified in the last 2 decades and particularly in the last 5 to 7 years, where they have become a very important FDI investor into India. They're now at number 5, I think, in terms of FDI investment. And during Prime Minister Modi's first visit to Japan in 2014, the Japanese came up with a figure at that point of time of 3.5 trillion yen of public and private investment and financing into India over 5 years, which will be directed both to the private and the public sector. This has been achieved. And now they have come back, and obviously India is a very responsible partner. So where very often the ODA is in forms of loans, we are very good at paying back our loans. Japanese investments in India have done very well. And therefore, I think this time around, Prime Minister Kishida has come with even a larger package, which is 5 trillion yen, which is about $42 billion. Again, this for the same thing, it will be both public and private investment and financing, and over a period of 5 years. And I think they've probably been very encouraged by the progress that they achieved the first time around with the first tranche, and they believe that this can be done. And the economic relationship is really, as I said, very, very important to us. We certainly could do with probably better trade figures than we have at the moment, but there's a huge potential, which is why we've been adding more to the list of goods and products that we are trading with between the two of us. And also FDI, certainly with all the schemes that we have in India, I think there's a huge potential for Japan to come in here, because ease of doing business in India, we have been over time really improving not only the ease of doing business, but also very receptive to the Japanese requests made of us. And I think they appreciate that. So going forward, I think we're going to see much larger investments. And they have, in a way, in these agreements, they have identified some areas with a lot of potential. And among these, I would say, would be areas such as electric vehicles, electric vehicle infrastructure, renewable energies. And they will help us with this entire transition in energy. So the areas that are important to climate change, which is extremely important to India as it is to Japan, and the outcome of the recent COP26, I think in that area, there are a lot of areas of cooperation, which also are actually business opportunities for both countries, for both Japan and India. So really the sky is the limit. There's much more we can do. There's much that is happening in the economic relationship, and there's much more that we can do. And I would like to mention one particular agreement, I think, which is of significance. It's not so much of an agreement as an initiative. And this initiative is for sustainable development of the Northeast region of India. And here also they have listed out the various areas in which they will be going into: the bamboo value chain, connectivity, infrastructure. As you know, this is an area of certain vulnerability in India, economic vulnerability. And this is where we feel very good to have Japan as a partner to come and help in the development of this area.
You have rightly mentioned about the climate change. Climate change is affecting both India and Japan, and both countries have committed for zero carbon emission in the future. So it becomes very, very important for an economic superpower like Japan and emerging superpower like India to come together. And that's how they have launched this clean energy partnership at the 14th summit. Now, India and Japan both acknowledge the need for explore a variety of options to ensure a secure and stable supply of energy for achieving both goals of sustainable economic growth and addressing climate change. And Mr. Modi's trust area is a green energy. He's been advocating a lot about EV. Now this summit has given them an opportunity and to achieve a low carbon economy. And Japan could be a good example in terms of support with the money and the technology. I think they have agreed in the summit on collaborating in clean energy partnership to cover electric vehicles, battery storage, and green hydrogen. Under the partnership, this cooperation may extend up to the area of waste management, clean construction, sustainable urban development, and water management. Both the Prime Minister seems to be quite focused about this creating joint crediting mechanism, as you talked about, JCM between two countries, so for the implementation of Article 6 of the Paris Agreement. Now, Japan is a much more modern society and they have expertise in dealing with these issues. You think India will benefit immensely by adopting the technologies from Japan under this agreement?
I must say that Japan, as you know, is known for both its technological advancement as well as the capacity for financing. And we have here in India a huge market. And as you mentioned, our Prime Minister's commitment to climate change, and the various initiatives that he has taken himself, I think this is a very good fit for the two countries to work together. And therefore, when they have been talking about renewable energies, we're also looking at new thrust areas such as green hydrogen, ammonia in terms of renewable energies. And also, very importantly, sustainability is, of course, waste management, water management, smart cities. And Japan already is in India in all these areas. So whether it is the Clean Ganga project that we have, in a lot of our urban centers, Japanese ODA is already flowing into India in this area of waste management. So I think what we are seeing as a result of this summit is that both sides saying that these are areas important to us. These are areas where we have worked together, we have a good experience, and we need to do more because the needs of India are more. And also, these are commercial opportunities for Japan to sell its technology to India. So in that way, we need the technology, they have it, and maybe we can collaborate to jointly develop a lot of these new age technologies, which is also, I think, what we are looking to do.
One of the important highlights of this summit was cyber security. And on cyber security, both countries discussed in India-Japan digital partnership with a view to enhancing digital economy through promotion of joint projects for digital transformation and collaboration in area of IoT, AI, and other emerging technologies. The joint statement between two countries said that the Prime Minister Kishida looked forward to attracting more highly skilled Indian IT professionals to contribute to the Japanese ICT sector. This seems to be going to be a very good opportunity for our IT companies to find a big market in Japanese economy.
I think this memorandum of cooperation in the field of cybersecurity is very significant because we know what is happening in the world. Japan and India have had a joint working group on cybersecurity for several years now. And our experts do meet regularly and we do exchange, I think, information and best practices between the two countries. But this now seems to concretize that cooperation that has the joint working group has identified. This is indeed very, very important, pertinent to the world as it stands today. You talked about the digital partnership. Yes, indeed, this is another new front in our relations. Japan, not only have we signed on this digital partnership, but they have also set up a fund of funds, which is to fund our new startups. And quite a number of our unicorns in India have got Japanese funding. They're extremely interested in this particular area. In the area of skills, so there were two aspects of this. One is, of course, Japan has already been welcoming IT professionals, not only now for quite a period of time. And I could tell you from my own experience as ambassador there, that the number of Indians in Japan is almost double from the time that I was there. And I think most of this doubling has been IT professionals. So they have been most welcomed in Japan. In addition to that, the Japanese have come up with a program which is called the Specified Skills Worker Program. It's called SSW. And they are training up Indians, the Japanese Indian Institutes of Management and the Japan Endowed Centers in our IITs and so on. And this is to train up Indians to understand kind of the Japanese needs or the standards of manufacturing. And from among these people, they are recruiting a lot of those who have done these courses to go to Japan. This is one area where we are looking at skilled workers. There's something else called Industry Intern Program where also our people are going. So there is, as you know, there's a growing population in Japan. They're in dire need of a young and energetic workforce. And here again, we have a perfect fit. So what is happening is that Indians are being trained and, we will see, I suppose, more Indian trained and highly skilled workers being welcomed in Japan. And this, again, is a very important area that has been covered during this summit.
Let's hope that two of the Asia's big, powerful countries, India and Japan, using their special strategic and global partnership, are able to help each other and be friends in the global growth. Thank you so much for your time, Ambassador Wadhwa.
Thank you very much, Sanjay.
You were listening to a discussion on India-Japan Summit and the road ahead. The participants were Deepa Gopalan Wadhwa, former diplomat, and Sanjay Jha, journalist. This program was produced and presented by the News Services Division of All India Radio. You can listen to it on our mobile app, News on AIR. This program is also available on our YouTube channel, News on AIR Official. You may email your opinion about this program at airnsdtalks@gmail.com.